Welcome to the Hour Show on Anidi TV. I'm delighted to have in the studio one of the very children of the captains that fought to redeem and release Rawlings from jail and led him to power. He is the son of the late Captain Kwabena Appiagyei. Welcome, Kwabena.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you.
I'm honored to meet you.
Yes, same here. Same here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Kwabena Appiagyei as well.
All right.
And I was born in Ghana.
Okay.
And I left Ghana before I was 2 years old.
Okay.
And my family, we moved to the UK. And for 30 years, I was in the UK.
Okay.
Before I moved back or visited Ghana.
All right.
And in those 30 years, I wasn't in tune with my Ghanaian roots.
Okay.
As I would have liked to. I only speak English.
Okay.
I went to British schools.
Okay.
All I know is the UK.
All right.
And when my dad passed,
right,
in 2014,
okay,
I went to his 1 year, and that was my first time going to Ghana.
Okay.
After 30 years.
Okay.
And it was amazing.
Wonderful.
And it made me realize what I've been missing out of. And in retrospect, I started to think about my father's journey and what he went through.
Okay.
And the things he told me before he passed.
Okay.
And I guess that's what started my journey into researching about him and Rawlings and the coups, the modern Ghana history, basically, because we're in the information age.
Okay.
I assume there's lots of information out there on the internet.
Okay.
And things like that. And I found some things that just gave me some insight onto how life was back then and his journey and his story.
Okay.
And how it affected me and my family, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll take it a step at a time. Who was your father?
Okay, so he was Captain Kwabena Appiagyei for the Ghana Air Force. So this is from his words. So I don't know how valid his story is, but I'm happy to say what he said to me.
Okay.
And he told me he was Rawlings' flight partner in the Air Force.
All right.
Rawlings was the pilot.
All right.
And he was the assistant or the partner. He was an engineer for the Ghana Air Force. Okay. So he used to work on the planes.
With Rawlings?
Yeah, with Rawlings. Yeah, he said he traveled the world with the Air Force. They've been he said he knew every inch of the world. And he's been everywhere with the Air Force. Okay. And he said the story, he told me about the story about of when Rawlings was arrested. Okay. And he told me that when Rawlings was arrested, that some small soldiers approached him to support them, break him out. And he told me he was one of the people that put the plan together to break Rawlings out of jail. Okay. Yeah. Before we get there, he was in exile. Yes. In Cote d'Ivoire. Yes. And that is where you were conceived. Yes. Yes. You were born in Ghana? Yes. What year was that? So I was born in 1984. Okay. Yeah. And I guess he was in the Cote d'Ivoire most likely between 82 and 83. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And my mum used to travel back and forth from Ghana to visit him. In Cote d'Ivoire? Yeah. So I was conceived in Cote d'Ivoire, and then my mother traveled back to Ghana, and then I was conceived in his village in Ghana. Yeah. All right. And when did you migrate to the UK? So it was 86, January 86. January 1986. Yeah. And did you travel with your father at the time, or you met your father in the UK? Did he join you later on? Apparently, my mother, my father, and me were together because I was a newborn baby. Yeah. my dad told me his initial plan was to go to Canada.
Okay.
But the Canada government didn't only wanted to take him, myself, and my mum. But he has, at the time, 7 other children. So they wouldn't have been able to go to Canada. On the way to the UK, he told me an interesting story. He had a meeting with Gaddafi, the late Gaddafi.
Oh, okay.
And me, my mum, and him were there in Libya.
I see.
And Gaddafi wanted him to support him in putting together the first African army. So that's something he told me himself. But he told me he didn't trust Gaddafi, and then he proceeded to the UK. Yeah.
It's been 30 or more years.
Yeah.
Since you migrated to the UK, and you last visited Ghana in 2014, right?
Myself?
Yeah.
Oh no, I was there just in January.
No, I mean from the first, when
since a baby. Yeah.
That was in 2014 when you celebrated the 1 year.
The 1 year, yes.
Okay, of your father.
Yeah.
When you got to Ghana, how did you feel?
Oh man, like growing up in the UK, I always felt a void, like a disconnect.
Okay.
And to sum up my experience going to Ghana for the first time, it made me realize the concept of home, how it feels like.
Okay.
Because I've heard people talk about home or say home or where they're from, but I realized I didn't understand what that meant.
Right.
And going to Ghana, I definitely felt like I was home.
Right.
Yeah, being able to visit, direct family members, aunties, uncles, cousins, going to places where my parents grew up, going to places where they went as children, hearing stories from aunties and uncles. Like it was a great experience.
Just before your father passed away, he sat you down and told you a lot. What did he exactly tell you? Because I'm sure by then, how old were you? When?
I was late 20s, so maybe like 20.
So you were of probably a matured mindset to understand what he was saying.
For sure.
What did he tell you?
So he told me about his experience of the coup and that period in Ghana, and how he was involved with the military.
Okay.
How he became a fugitive, and how he managed to escape. So he went into, like, he told me some stuff about that journey, that experience during that time of his life, which was
Tell us some of the things he said.
Yeah, so like I said before, he was involved with the coup.
Yeah.
He was involved with the helping Rawlings break out of jail.
Okay.
He told me that Rawlings coming into power and becoming president was only meant to be temporary. And further down the line, he ended up turning on the people that helped him get into power. And from there, he told me, basically that Rawlings tried to kill him. And then he had to escape Ghana by foot through the bushes from wherever. Maybe he was in Accra, maybe he was in the eastern region. But from there to Ivory Coast border, he got to the border and was arrested and put in prison in the Ivory Coast. When he got to whilst he was in prison, there was a Ghanaian working at the prison and recognized who he was and realized that he was a guy from the same village. And my dad used to help his mom in the village.
Okay.
He didn't say what he used to help him with, but because he realized he was the guy that helped his mum, he let him go.
I see.
From prison, and that's how he was managed to escape the prison in the Ivory Coast. And then once he escaped, there was another attempt to overthrow Rawlings, and I assume that's what the 1983 invasion trial was about.
Okay.
And he told me that with that attempt, they were actually successful, but the person in the castle or wherever the thing happened couldn't find the bell, to ring the bell to say, you know, there's new leadership, because there had to be an announcement made, to what I understand, and then everything would be acknowledged. And they couldn't find it, and Rawlings, his party or troops had time to regroup, and then they were unsuccessful. And then after that, he told me the Israelis and Americans were the ones that financed that. And that's probably why he was able to go to the UK or to the Western world, because he had a relationship. And yeah, that's basically his story.
What was going through your mind at that time? I'm sure you had probed him several times, even before then.
Yeah.
And now he's opening up to you. What was going through your mind at the time? What exactly were you thinking about?
I think I was just mind blown. I was mind blown, and I just felt there was a bit of clarity of knowing his story and what he had gone through, and then that you know, that allowed me to think, okay, he's been through a lot. He went through a lot, and it made me feel like if things had gone his way, life would have been different. But that's how things go, I guess.
What made you actually research much about him after his death? What triggered you to? He's told you what you needed to know. You've spoken to your mother on several occasions, and she refused to answer some of the questions. Why did you still take on that journey to look into some of the things he did?
But I thought the story was pretty unique.
Okay.
I thought the story was, if he was a significant player, right, in during that time, I guess my own self-interest just wanted to see how, at what level would he be acknowledged somewhere? Would Rawlings speak about him, or will people speak about him in public? And I guess that's what led me to find out more about the type of person he was during that time. Yeah.
Did you get, or do you still feel upset about certain things he did in the past? Yeah.
Yeah, oh, for sure. There's definitely, like, what he did wasn't a good thing.
Okay.
But, you know, this is Africa. Like, a lot of things like that happened in you know, even till this day.
Right.
And there's lots of, you know, what's the word? I guess the word would be, there's lots of corruption.
Okay. There's
lots of people being power hungry.
Right.
And this is the times. That was the time. So obviously I you know, I wish he didn't do those things, but considering the climate and the opportunities, everybody's human, everybody has mistakes, everybody has desires, dreams, and a lot of people go for it if presented with the opportunity. And so I wouldn't say I regret what he did. I just feel like I'm just happy to know what he did, to be honest, because for years I didn't know. I just didn't know.
Yeah. At some point, when, I mean, you got to know much about these things and he had passed on. But do you have any sort of ill feel against Rawlings, for instance, for, you know, the sort of betrayal he had imposed on most of his close allies? Do you believe it?
Yeah, I did. You know, if you hear someone's trying to kill your dad, then you're going to think, oh gosh, you take it personally. My brothers told me when they was in the village, they heard stories from my dad's siblings, that there was one particular story was that I have an uncle that looks similar to my dad, and during that time, the soldiers would approach them with guns and try to assassinate them, but realize that's not my dad, that's someone else.
I see.
And then let it go. So it was like dangerous times during those times that Rawlings really wanted him dead. So yeah, I had bad things to, well, not bad things to say, but I didn't, you know, I wasn't a fan of Rawlings, I guess. That's the best thing to say.
Do you feel your livelihood at the early childhood stages of yourself, especially you loving Africa, do you believe that it's been taken away from you?
During that time, yeah. During that time, I feel like I'm getting it back now. Now I've had the chance to experience Africa, but growing up, definitely like, you know, besides not knowing the history of my family, growing up in the UK, we was bombarded with information of famine, of poverty in Africa. You saw like the Blue Peter and the Oxfam adverts and stuff like that. Africa wasn't appealing. So because of seeing those images, I definitely felt that played a big part of me not showing interest. Yeah, me not showing.
But aside your father telling you any of these stories, was there any point in time where anybody approached you and probably hinted you about, you know, who your father actually was and some of the things he did in the past?
Yeah, I mean, like family members and stuff like that. Other than that, no.
Is that what made you question him more at that time?
Yeah.
Your mother? Yeah. Why did you think he refused to tell you about it?
Yeah, but he wasn't a very open person. He was a military person, so he wasn't very outspoken. Like, he kept a lot of things to himself. So I think that was just the way he was. He was like that with a lot of information. There's only a few things I could tell you about him, to be fair.
Right. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we talk more.
Maintaining a presence at the forefront of a global issue with the desire to help others come to a resolve in personal and business affairs is why Andy D Legal and Immigration Associate was established.
We specialize in overseas British passport applications, bails and temporary admission, deportation and detention cases.
The profound pattern in achieving positive results with fragile cases in immigration, nationality, European Union and human rights law, adoption, marriage, divorce, litigation, and so on, up to date, has been broken, and that is why our client base continues to expand.
We also do representations at the UK border agencies and overseas consulate, human rights law, and settlement and leave to remain applications.
We have the right keys to unlock any case across the spectrum of law, locally in London and across the borders in Ghana, where our other branches are established.
We are located at 44 Broadway, Stratford, E15 1XH. Our telephone number is 0203 1300 751.
When it comes to having an effective evacuation plan for emergencies, how prepared are you? If your company has a large number of employees in a multi-storey building, then the most important factors to consider and manage are how to get everyone out quickly, efficiently and safely. That's where the VertEscape escape chute comes in. It's a vertical escape chute that can be installed to any multi-storey building. In the event of an emergency, employees file out to the pre-installed escape chute storage or deployment container, open the hatch, release the chute, and climb into the elasticized vertical chute. Once inside, the evacuee starts moving down the chute, easily using a combination of their hands, arms, and feet to adjust the speed of their descent, by applying internal pressure to slow down and releasing pressure to speed up, while their weight is fully supported. Super strong yet lightweight material of the chute also protects the evacuee from fire, whilst still allowing air to freely circulate. Once they reach the ground, the evacuees exit the chute and make their way to safety. As many as 25 employees may be evacuated every minute. The VertEscape escape chute from Escape Chute Systems, an innovation that quite simply saves lives.
Welcome back. Just before the break, we were exploring more about Captain Kwabena Appiagyei. So, and you were mentioning the fact that he was sentenced to life in his absence.
Yeah.
And that was the amnesty list at the time.
Yeah.
You had the first list there, you know, Captain Kwabena Appiagyei in absentia and convicted to death.
Yeah. Yeah. So I found this on the amnesty document.
Right.
And it was just a list explaining what the crime they was being sentenced for.
It's a lot of them.
Yeah, so when I saw my dad, it just brought things to life. And then I tried to see the other names to see if I recognized any of the other names, and unfortunately I didn't. But it just made me want to investigate the other people on the list, to be fair. And when I saw your channel and your previous interviews, I was just gonna keep watching your programs to see if one of these guys that were talking out would have appeared on the list, and then I would have known maybe the odds would have been high that they knew my father, and then maybe I could speak to them and get some stories and insight of this, more information on the story of this time.
Yeah, but I mean, rolling back, I mean, this is a crucial list there, you know, a lot of them convicted to death. You know, and most people have been criticizing me for saying, listen, there was a genuine trial in place at the time, and I disagree. And they still believe that there were genuine trials in place, but I still disagreed. And looking at some of the pictures, let's roll back the pictures. Your father being one of the, I mean, where is he in the picture, if you can show me?
So he's just standing just right there.
Right there. So he's, and let's go to the next picture. Where is he?
So in this picture, he's just right there. So he used to say a lot that he was...
Okay. And this one?
In this one, he's over there.
This one?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so, and this one, he's just there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a very close guy to Rawlings at the time. Now, how do you feel? I mean, hearing that he was sentenced to death in his absence. So he probably never went back to Ghana.
No.
So he passed on.
No, he went to Ghana after Rawlings was no longer in power.
Okay.
Within a year after Rawlings was out of power, both my parents were back in Ghana. Okay. So I took it as that maybe they couldn't go back.
Okay.
Like maybe they would have been in trouble if they ever went back during Rawlings' time in power. Yeah, because now, since they went back, they started going back and forth since then. Yeah.
If you were to meet Rawlings today, what would you Tell him or ask him.
To be honest, I would just ask him why. I'll ask him why he tried to kill my dad, if they were such good friends. I guess if my dad tried to overthrow him once he was in power, that would be a motive. But it would be nice to hear from him, his side of the story, because maybe my dad is the bad guy and Rawlings is the good guy. I'm not biased. I don't try to be biased, you know. So if I was to meet Rawlings, it would definitely just be ask him why. Yeah, ask him why, and maybe ask him how close they were. Like before he got into power, they were partners in the Air Force. So I would definitely ask about, you know, how they became friends and just like small personal stories, things like that. Yeah, I'll ask him for sure. But my dad used to tell me during this time he was about, but he liked to play the background, but he always wore the hat. So when I saw the pictures and he's wearing the hat, I just felt like there was validation to his version of events or his side of the story. Yeah, because in these pictures, in all of them, he's wearing the hat that he was speaking of. Yeah.
But how did you come across the Andy D channel in the first place?
Yeah, so first I came across the list.
Okay.
I just Googled my father's name, Capt Kwabena Appiagyei, and then I started watching documents of Rawlings on YouTube, and then I guess through like the analytics and things like that, YouTube suggested other interviews to me.
Okay.
And then I saw the first one with you, and I loved the interview with the guy you was interviewing.
Wow.
Yeah, because until that point, people that I've seen speak of Rawlings in public spoke of like they were basically fans. But that guy, he was not a fan. You know, he's calling Rawlings a criminal and stuff like that. So I just thought it was juicy information, and it was coming from a perspective that was valid. He was there. He was in the military, so he has a version of events. And then I saw another interview, and then I could see that you was doing like your own investigation of this time, and I thought that was important for me for me and of what I was trying to do, and I was just looking out to see maybe if I was to get in touch with one of those guys that you've been interviewing, maybe they can shed more light on those events, or hearing my story and the way my dad told things, maybe they can add their side. And then, like, you know, when you have so many accounts, you can get a picture of how things of the story of how things went out. And I think it's important that people like try not to hide or try to censor or be quiet about this time, because it's our history. These things happen.
True.
You know, and I've always been a person that I just search for the truth. In anything I do, I look for the truth, whether it's good or bad. And that's what led me to, you know, even with my dad, when he told me his version, I actually had to, part of the reason why I researched to see if what he was saying was the truth, because, you know, growing up, how I grew up, if I was in a bar and I start talking about my dad, people are gonna ask me for proof. At least now I got proof, you know, and yeah, I think trying to be quiet about your history, you're exposing yourself for it repeating yourself, of history repeating itself. And how can Ghana grow if we're just going through a cycle of making the same mistakes? We need to study this, put out the truth, and learn from it.
Sure.
And learn from it.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, few people do believe that I'm after Rawlings, and you know, rather than probably learning much about our history, and trying to unravel the truth, really.
Yeah.
Some few believe that I'm after him, and they wish I probably discontinued.
Stay quiet. Yeah.
What's your take on it?
I don't think that's a good idea. Okay. I mean, for me, if when you're searching for the truth and you're genuine, and someone's telling you not to search for the truth, for me it means you have something to hide. There's something you don't want people to find out. And I'm sorry, like, the truth is the truth. If through finding the truth you find dirty laundry, you find skeletons in the closet, you know, that's it's the truth. It's the truth. I don't know what would happen to, like, the level of what could happen when these truths are found. I guess it depends on what you did. But at the end of the day, I'm all about transparency. And if you've been looking and trying to investigate and looking for the truth, I don't see why you shouldn't have the right. You're from Ghana. You have, you love your country. Why not? Why not? I don't know why it's not in the Ghana history books. In Ghana history books or Ghana education, they're probably studying World War I or the Vietnam War or something. We need to study Ghana history or African history.
Sure.
And that's why I think what you're doing is good. Because you're appreciating history. It might not come across that you're appreciating it, but the fact that your attention is there, you care, you have to respect that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to say a big thank you, but just before we close, and my team, what we're going to offer you is the ability to sit one-on-one with some of the previous, personalities that were involved with your father.
Yeah.
And they can then enlighten you much more about it.
Okay.
And that, I can assure you that.
Yeah.
A lot of people, a lot of children that didn't know much about their parents, through this program, have gotten to understand what had happened to their fathers that were killed and thrown into the seas and whatnot. So I appreciate your time for coming, and we will do everything in our power, in our ability, to assist you finding the truth about the late Captain Kwabena Appiagyei.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure as well.
Well, this is where time will bring us. I'd like to say a big thank you to all our viewers around the world. Remember to subscribe on Andy D TV, on our YouTube channel, Facebook, follow us on Instagram and on Twitter. There is also another platform on the YouTube called Andy D Media. Do subscribe to it and follow other subsequent stories. Thank you, good day, and goodbye.
Thanks.